Alright, doing the Venus Vamos Epicureans. This is Sunday, December 14th, 2025. You're tuned into the Marvel Epic Collection podcast where we are going to read, rate, and review the Marvel Epic Collection trade paperbacks. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How you doing, Nick?
I've been better. Comments have been made. I fractured my fibula.
That doesn't sound helpful
to
life. What? How the hell did you do that?
Okay, so I'm a school teacher. We were, and this is this. I don't know how you can get better than this, obviously. So we were covering World War I in my classroom. And, you know, as it is, you try to make things a little interactive, a little interesting, fun for the kids. So I had them all put their desks down on the ground sideways to build trenches. We were going to simulate trench warfare. And we wadded up a bunch of paper to, you know, make bullets to throw over the trenches and no man's land and all that stuff. And everything was going fine. I've done this simulation for years. And as it was wrapping up, I stood up from my trench, took one turn left, and heard this pop, and back down into the trench I went. So,
oh my God,
I got to remind myself I'm an old man, right?
You might need some milk in your diet. Like, I don't know, your bones were supposed to, when you said the pop, I thought maybe you it was like your calf or some sort of NFL injury, something like that. But
yeah, well, when it happened, I thought I dislocated my ankle or something. So I just sat on the ground and eventually got to the ER, and they did a CT scan, and they're like, nope, fractured fibula. Okay. I like the alliteration of that, though. But, yeah, I'm on workman's comp for trench warfare. So, but
well, at least what was I guess it was trench foot. I was trying to think of like what at least it's not like something like that.
That was my joke, my wife's joke, right? Because I'm in a boot now and on crutches and everything. So she's saying I've got trench foot.
Did your students help you out, or did they take advantage of the opportunity and just kind of kick you while you're down, so to speak?
No, my students were awesome. Like, as soon as I said, guys, I think this is serious, they reined it in. They helped put the room back together, and they helped grab water and other stuff for me while I waited. We have a nurse on campus, so I was waiting for the nurse to show up. So my students were totally awesome. I doubt any of them will ever see this, but in case they do, thank you guys. You guys are incredible.
Nice.
This does have some ramifications for our stream, though. Normally, when we do these, I plug my computer directly into the internet to hopefully make sure that there's no Wi-Fi lag or anything like that. Because I'm on crutches, I couldn't really move the cord. And also, same thing as on the. I did a couple video game streams the last couple of days with the Marvel Cosmic Invasion. I can't move the nice chair over to my desk, so I'm in a squeaky chair, which hopefully it's not going to make too much noise. I'm going to try to be as quiet as I can.
Well, speaking of quiet and loud, I'm going to go on mute for 10 seconds here because I have an invader in my office, and I need to make sure that they have everything they need. 1 second.
All right, no worries. So we are... if... you guys are tuned in to the World of Epic Collections, you know that Omar and Curtis had a live stream on Thursday where they revealed some of the new releases that are going to be happening in kind of towards the middle to back half of 2026. Stojr and I are going to spend a minute to just go through those before we actually get into our review of Avengers West Coast. Just kind of give our thoughts on these now that we know some new things coming out. And Curtis said that there's more to be revealed for the months of November, December 2026, and January 2027, and those are apparently even better than the ones that we've got this time. So I'm waiting in anticipation and hoping that will be a lot of exciting stuff. As for what's revealed this time, well, we will get into that. You ready, Stojr?
I think I'm all set, ready to go.
Okay, so I just realized a flaw in how we're doing this. You can't see my screen, so you're just going to have to listen to my saying what these announced new releases are, and we'll go from there. Let's just try to be quick about this so we can get into the review, because we're trying to move these chit chat segments into their own little show. But okay, so the announced August 2026 releases up. I'm going to add before here. I did ask Curtis if I could have permission to share his slides. He did not respond to me, but he posted them on the internet, so I'm going to take that as they're out there anyway. So.
And usually Curtis does respond. He's probably just busy, so that wasn't like a hey, he ignores us. But we chat with him from time to time, so
yeah,
that's just a timing problem more than anything else.
So anyway, this is meant in good faith. I did not put these slides together. Curtis Finley did of the Epic Marvel podcast. I am just using them. So for August of 2026, we've got a reprint, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3. Stojr, thoughts?
I already have it. I think it's a great reprint. I'm happy it's out there for people.
Yep, agreed. Same thing. Let's see. Fantastic Four Epic Collection Volume 26, Heroes Reborn. What are your thoughts on this?
So I'm probably not getting this because I do have the complete collection. I do know that the contents are slightly different in this volume. The volume that's being printed includes the crossover with the Avengers Heroes Reborn and Iron Man Heroes Reborn. So for some odd reason, when they did I guess it's the second printing, I think Curtis said, of these complete collections, they all added the crossover issues. And by the way, we're talking about the issue 12 of the crossover. Issue 13, like the cross gen or whatever the heck that was, that I was completely confused about back then. That's not in it at all because of licensing issues. But this volume has that. Also has some material from Hulk 450, which I don't think the original one has. However, I don't think that's enough to make me rebuy because I have all the Heroes Reborn complete collections. I have that crossover in the other volumes, so I don't feel like the need to like double, triple dip. But if one day it's on sale or something like that, and I find it, I might just get it so that the shelf looks all right.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I should preface by saying I'm a sicko and I'm going to be buying all of these except for the reprints I already have. But this one I am kind of excited about because I was wondering what they would do with those issue 13s that had the crossover with I think they were Image characters at the time, but maybe now they're with DC because
I still don't know because it's not even that good of a story. I mean, maybe if you knew those characters going into it, but I have the single issues, but I was completely confused by it back then.
Yeah, this is my dark period too. I wasn't even reading these things, so I was kind of, whenever they announced these, I was curious if those would end up in them or not. And of course, it seems like the issue 13s are not. So as the live stream was happening, I went online to mycomicshop.com and I just ordered all of those. So that I will have them and thus have a complete collection once all these come out. All right, let's see. Go ahead.
My one quibble was I kind of wanted this series. It's only a 4-issue series. I think this is padded with some other material, but it's only a 4-issue series. This is the return. I kind of wish that was included, in that volume. I know it would have made it bigger, but there's, that's the end, right? Like that's how they get back to the Marvel universe. So, I don't know what they're going to do with that limited series, if it'll be in the next volume for everything, or if they just kind of ignore how they get back and treat it as like a crossover or something like that.
Well, I sure hope they don't ignore how they get back, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Next up in August, Marvel 2-in-1 Epic Collection Volume 4, Project Pegasus. I personally am excited about this one. I do like the Thing is, Spider-Man's my first favorite character. Fantastic Four is a group, but within the Fantastic Four, I love the Thing. And Project Pegasus is kind of the highlight of the 2-in-1 series that he was the star of. But Stojr, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick it up. It's kind of like a secondary series for me in the sense that I started collecting it, but I haven't really gotten into it. I haven't read them all yet, but I was able to get the first 3 volumes relatively cheap or whatever. So in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm going for it.
All right, then Miles Morales, Spider-Man Modern Era Epic Volume 4, Sitting in a Tree.
I think I'm going to get this too because I did end up getting the complete collections for 1, 2, and 3, and this is would it just naturally follows the volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the epics are just reskins of the complete collection. So the other reason I think I'm going to get this is because I think it collects a whole volume of his series. And
Yeah.
then whatever the next epic would be more of a longer ongoing. I might be wrong about that. I need to double check, but it looked like a good chunk to purchase, and then but I probably won't continue Miles when he gets into his ongoing long series because while I find some of those issues interesting and I like that they exist, it's not my cup of tea to kind of continue. So it's a good break point for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a sicko. I'll get it and eventually read it, but I think this is the one where they integrate Miles into the 616 universe, and I think that was the biggest mistake for him. He worked great as the successor to Spider-Man in the Ultimate Marvel universe. Now he's just another Spider character that's taking away from Peter Parker instead of adding to that other universe's story. But it's what it is. Let's see. ROM Epic Collection Volume 5, the original Marvel years. They're just calling them all the original Marvel years.
Yeah, so I had if I end up getting the earlier volumes of ROM, I might jump on this. The earlier volumes intrigued me with the Sal art, but I have not yet purchased, even though they're pretty cheap on in stock trades. You can get volume one for like between 20 and $25. The until I get that, I don't think I'm going to get this, but I got a whole almost a year or 8 months to figure that out.
Yep. Yeah, obviously I'm getting it. I like ROM. I haven't read any of the ROM Epic collections yet, so I'm looking forward to when I can eventually. I'll probably wait until I've got the whole thing as a chunk and maybe like my thoughts on Micronauts and then maybe go through it all. All right, last one for August. Spider-Girl Modern Era Epic Collection Volume 7 Comes the Carnage.
Yeah, I'm going to be skipping Spider-Gwen stuff.
Spider-Girl, not
Not
Spider-Gwen.
necessarily. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Spider-Girl. Yeah, for now I'm going to skip it. But if I go back and decide so I have most of the single issues of the 100 issue run from the original 100 issue run. Now this is the follow up right after that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was like immediately relaunched as the Amazing Spider-Girl. I don't have any of that. Maybe I have like the first issue or something like that. So so I've thought about like just finishing off that 100 issue run and custom binding it. So I might go that route. Now again, and if I go that route, I know it doesn't cover this series because I don't have it yet. But then I might just collect that series and then bind it in single issues, or I might pick up the epic at that time. So I'm in no rush to pick this one up. Even though I encourage people to get Spider Girl because I think it's a pretty decent series, especially if you like old school writing and that sort of Pato Leaf art style.
Yeah, I'm interested in this because of the creators. I have not read Spider Girl, but I know it was big. And kind of my same thoughts on ROM. I want the whole thing as a chunk, and then maybe I'll crack it out. So I'll grab it just to grab it, and then hold on to reading it until hopefully because they haven't done the complete collection volumes in epic format yet, except for volume 1. So hopefully they do the rest of those as epics, and I'll get those. All right, let's go to September. September is pretty stacked, so let's try to be quick here. Amazing Spider-Man Modern Era Epic, Volume 15, Spider Island.
Yeah, that's a huge yes for me. The only thing that makes me want to go on the secondary market is there's like a companion edition for the Spider Island because there's a lot of crossover issues for
Oh, yeah.
that aren't collected here. So they're not necessary for the plot. But what's interesting is I don't think the Venom issues were collected there in what's solicited here. But the Venom issues are in the complete collection version of this.
Hmm.
So again, 2 volumes. There's a complete collection and there's a complete collection companion. They might have been hardcovers first or something like that. The Venom issues are in the main complete collection, but not in this volume, which I found interesting, but not the end of the world. Flash Thompson Venom teams up with Captain America in that issue,
Oh,
but
that could be
Spider-Man's
good.
not actually in those comics per se, so it's not surprising that they did it this way.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder how the epics are going to handle stuff like that, where it's a book specific event that has those extras, right? Who knows? We'll see. Maybe they just get ignored. I hope not, but we'll find out. Let's see. Here's the big one. I think that Curtis was hinting at: Iron Man Epic Collection Volume 8, Demon in a Bottle.
Yeah, so for me, I have the Demon in a Bottle Premiere hardcover. I know it covers only a sliver of the contents that would be in this book. I've been starting to get Iron Man Epics. I only have a couple. I think they're behind me. You can kind of see, or maybe my head's blocking it. But the so I'm not gonna get this day one unless that becomes my new kind of gap filler epic that I transition to by that point in time. Right now, for me, I'm more focused on filling in the Hulk, and I kind of handle one volume at a time. So I think this is a great book for people to pick up. But I'm more focused on Hulk than I am Iron Man right now, as a new line for me.
Sure. I'm definitely grabbing this. I think I remember reading these in the Essentials and enjoying this storyline, but honestly, my memory's a little vague about that. Okay, Carnage, Modern Era Epic Collection, Volume 2, Prophecy of the Darkhold. I'll buy it, but I'm not happy about it. Stozier?
I'm more happy about modern Carnage than I am about like the jumpy, kind of screenshot, or one page from one issue stuff you get in the classic stuff, right? Because
Really?
Carnage was all over the place. So yeah, like Carnage Volume 2 or Carnage Volume 3 is not peak material, but it gets a little better in the modern age, I would say. So yeah, I'm getting this. I also have the Carnage USA, in the US postal system right now on its way to me. So got to fill out that symbiote shelf.
All right, then Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider Modern Era Epic, Volume 4, Into the Gwenverse. Boy, I don't need more Spider-Verse stuff, but yep, I'll begrudgingly get it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the original Spider-Verse stuff, but between that and the Venomverse, it's a bit too much. But yeah, not my cup of tea. I'm skipping.
Yeah, I like the idea of Spider-Gwen. She's got a cool costume, but there's just too many spider people around.
Yeah.
Ultimate Epic Collection Volume 2, Gods and Monsters. This is a big yes for me. I enjoyed the Ultimate Universe when it first came out. Stozier?
It's a maybe for me. I have the thin trades on my shelf. I also have the originals. I like that they're doing the fold out. That they're going to have a fold out in this for. There's a great. I think it's like 8-page. What do you call it?
Gate
fold out page. Yeah.
No.
No. It's like the Death of Superman fold out or the Wolverine issue fold out, where it's a multi-page splash page or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, so I'm very glad that they have that. To be honest, like if you're going to get Ultimates, these are the 2 volumes to get. I think there's a little bit of noise online about the annuals being missing, because Ultimates goes completely off the rails. Almost in a comical good way. Like, it's kind of just funny to sit back and watch it in volume 3, 4, and 5. And then Hickman returns and kind of brings it back on track, so to speak, later on. So
I think I missed that there was a volume 4 and 5, probably because of what you're saying. I remember volume 3 being a complete and total wreck, and I think it was at that point I was having to cut back on comics because of life circumstances.
It's called like Ultimate Avengers, so they don't. It's not Ultimates. It's Ultimate Avengers at that point in time. So that's probably why you missed it. But there's like a 4 or 5 issue series with like Blade and like a Hulk vampire. Like it gets wacky.
All right, Venom Epic Collection Volume 8, Shadows of the Past. I think this is the last in the classic Venom line, and I'll get it and I'll be okay with it.
Yeah, same. I have to look at the contents. It's a little deeper to see like what stuff I'm missing, because the main Spider-Man books in here I've collected in the past. They're not available in Epic Collection yet on the Spider-Man side. So yeah, this one I'm looking forward to.
All right, Wolverine Epic Collection Volume 5, Valley of Death. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I had posted in the Curtis's Discord about books that I would like. I hope that they're going to have there, or I want to have there, but regardless of whether I think that they'll actually publish it or not. When we were predicting it, and Volume 4, Volume 5 of Wolverine was one of them. Very glad to have this gap filler. Looking forward to this.
Yeah. And then lastly for September, our other reprint, X-Men Epic Collection Volume 21, Executioner's Song. I already have this and paid more than I should have for it about a year ago, but hey, it's what it is.
Yeah, I had this. I have the storyline twice because I have the X Force volume where they mostly overlap with the crossover. It's one of my favorite covers of X-Men books from X-Men, I think 10 and 90 series, and had that beat that issue up to death because it was right when I first started getting comics. So love that stuff.
All right. I just noticed JV 1969's in the chat. Hey, JV. He's been giving me a lot of grief about my fibula. Let's see. All right, let's wrap this up quickly. October 2026, Aliens Epic Collection, the original years, Volume 4.
I have not gotten into the licensed stuff yet. I might, when I finish some of the main Marvel lines, I might jump over into that. I am somewhat interested, but I kind of have to test the waters and see what it's like before I dive in completely. How about you?
Um, you know, this is the one that I'm saying no, I'm not going to buy, but there's been a part of me. I maybe need to be stopped because I am a sicko here. There's a part of me that's starting to itch and think, well, maybe I should pick up Planet of the Apes and Aliens. I'm not going to go so far as to get Star Wars because I really just don't care about Star Wars, but maybe there's something to be seen here. So I don't know. And I think my problem is I just with Black Friday sales, I just ordered all of the things off of In Stock Trade that they have available that I do not have. So I've depleted them as a source, unless I pick up Planet of the Apes and Aliens. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. Don't really have that much of an interest, but there's a part of me that's thinking about it.
We should just as a side programming note, we should do a little segment on where do we get these things from. So
Mm.
talk a little bit about the different websites, the different tricks on eBay, My Comic Shop, like all that stuff, and kind of walk people through how they can fill out their shelf.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe we make it one of those fanfare episodes in the future.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Blade Epic Collection Volume 1. His name is Blade. I'm glad that we get Volume 1 since we've already got Volume 2. I'm excited to see some vampire hunting. I don't know much about Blade.
Yeah, I mean the Morbius volumes have kind of kept me at bay. I don't know that I've ever been the biggest fan of all of the Marvel horror stuff going into like Midnight Suns and things like that. But I am interested in it, so it's a maybe for me right now.
Okay. Captain America Modern Era Epic Collection Volume 4 Reborn. I don't know anything about this, but I'm excited to check it out.
And I can't see the picture. This is the this is like when he comes back from the dead stuff?
Maybe. This contains Captain America 2004, excuse me, issues 49 to 50, 600 to 601.
Yeah.
Then Captain America Reborn 2009, issues 1 through 6, the digital prologue. Captain America Reborn, Who Will Wield the Shield from 2009.
Yeah, so definitely that era with Bucky and after the death of Captain America. I have plans to custom bind a whole bunch of Captain America stuff. But if I find out that that's way too expensive, I may flip back over to the Epics for that stuff. But yeah, that's I have all those single issues. It's great. I highly recommend people pick this one up.
All right, let's see. Excalibur Epic Collection Volume 6, The Douglock Chronicles. Getting closer to the end of Excalibur there. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, this will be this might be my final volume. I mean, it won't be. I'll buy the other one when it eventually comes out. But when I get this, because I have the Warren Ellis thick-ish trades, there's like 3 volumes. They're not super thin, but they're also not epic sized. I will have all of Excalibur up on the shelf. So because this volume only overlaps by 3 or 4 issues with the Warren Ellis trades, as opposed to the next volume, which will be complete overlap with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then Ghost Rider Epic Collection Volume 4, To Slay a Demon. I don't know a whole lot about Ghost Rider, but I'm in for it. I'm interested.
Yeah, I have not picked up any of the Ghost Rider stuff, so this is a no for me until I decide to start getting that line.
And, my thoughts are kind of same for our last one here. This is Moon Knight Epic Collection Volume 8, The Resurrection War. Again, I've picked up issues of Moon Knight here and there when I was a kid. In fact, the picture that I think Curtis put here as highlighting stuff in here, I don't know if he chose that or if that came from Marvel, but I think I may have had that issue when I was a kid. Don't really remember much about it, but I'll be interested to check it out anyway.
Yeah, I have 3 volumes of Moon Knight that I got used or on sale, but I haven't read them through yet, and they haven't hooked me enough to say that I'm like collecting that as a full-on line. Kind of dipping my toes in the water still with Moon Knight, so I am probably not getting this when it first comes out. And I don't know that the stories are super strong. I think this is like more of a completist volume from what I understand, but I could be wrong with that. I did see that there's some amazing Steve, I think it's Steve Platt, or I know Platt's the last name. I forget his first name. His art in there for the last, 5 or 6 issues of this. There's only one of those issues that's available on Marvel Unlimited because I went to go check it out. He's one of those like image guys but like kind of looks like very McFarlane-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very sought after at that point in time. I'd be interested in this if only to get those 5 or 6 issues of his art because it kind of looks cool.
All right. Well, that is it for the new announcements. And of course, Curtis had said in his channels that there's going to be some more coming up soon, probably after the holidays, I would guess. And I'm looking forward to that too. All right. I appear to have lost Stojr. Everything okay?
Yeah, sorry. TV problems and before everybody's awake in the house, so the little one is trying to get something working, and I think the internet might be slow because of the snow here. So
Gotcha. Well, you're coming well on my end, and so far as I can tell, we
well,
aren't dropping frames.
the phone might be on LTE, and the Wi-Fi might be different.
Gotcha.
But or the TV's just not set up right, and I can't fix it for the 6-year-old right now. So.
All right, well, let's finally get into today's volume. That did take longer than I thought it was going to. There we go. We're spending another half hour on just chit chat. But let's go ahead and get into it. Stojr, do you want to introduce this volume, Avengers West Coast, Volume 1, How the West Was Won?
Yeah. So in order to prepare for this volume, I flipped through some other volumes to kind of context set where we're at. And the first one I looked at was the Hawkeye Volume 1 Epic Collection. This has the Hawkeye and Mockingbird miniseries in here, as well as all of Hawkeye's appearances from 1964 through 1988, whereas Avengers West Coast picks up in 1984. So you get a little bit of overlap with the West Coast stuff, not overlap with the same issues per se, but you get all of Hawkeye's introductions up until this point, and almost leads directly into there. From there, I started to just kind of go through the Avengers book to see where this at was in the grand scheme of things. So I was looking through Seasons of the Witch, which also collects the Hawkeye miniseries in here. But we don't have the main Avengers series that corresponds directly to this. So that would be more likely more aligned with the Absolute Vision Epic Collection that's solicited for March 2026. So Absolute Vision will take us from 238 to 254. And in this book, we have the double dipping with issue 250 of Avengers. So we don't have the exact Avengers epic released yet that kind of lines up with that. Now, a little bit of additional background here. Mockingbird was first introduced in Marvel Team Up 95 with Spider-Man, which I guess explains why they briefly dated in the Dan Slott era of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Worldwide issues. And any chance I can insert Dan Slott's name just to annoy you, I will continue to do that. This is followed up by her and Hawkeye teaming up in the limited series, going on a mission and abruptly marrying. So one of the things that people should kind of go into this Avengers West Coast is like there's a lot of like newlywed, kissy face, things like that. They only like knew each other for like a week and got married. So, this is not like Spider-Man and Mary Jane where editorial made some weird, last minute decision to kind of put them together. This was pretty much new character. Let's put them in a limited series together. And on the last page of the limited series, they're married. But, Hawkeye's more of a free spirit. You can kind of see that happening and working a little bit more than, you did with the change with Spider-Man there. This book covers Avengers West Coast, limited series 1 through 4, Iron Man Annual 7, Avengers 250 as mentioned earlier, and then West Coast Avengers 1 through 7, as well as Vision and the Scarlet Witch issues 1 through 2, and Wonder Man #1. Now, there's an important programming note here. This is West Coast Avengers. Byrne comes onto the series later and changes it to Avengers West Coast. This was apparently a big deal for some people. Carries over to the title of the Epic Collections, which is Avengers West Coast versus West Coast Avengers. I don't know why any of that matters, but apparently it mattered very much to John later on in the series. And then the vibe of this series, I know Curtis disagrees with me when I put this in one of the Discord or Facebook groups, but I feel like I'm reading Thunderbolts, or I feel like Thunderbolts is a spiritual successor to this. Now, obviously, this is not a team of villains per se, although Wonder Man, Hawkeye both started out as villains just a long time ago. At this point in time, they weren't secret villains in this series. But the vibe that I get from Thunderbolts of being this sort of almost Avengers series somewhere else that is not beholden to all the rules of the Avengers, that has these sort of characters like Gravitron show up, that has these other random villains or random heroes that you're not going to see in the main Avengers series. So if you're a big fan of the Bagley and Busiek Thunderbolts, especially after the sort of they settle in after the initial hey who they are type of stuff, you might very well enjoy getting these epic collections and sort of jumping on here. So for me, whether that's a Thunderbolts vibe or maybe even the Mighty Avengers, again, Dan Slott kind of wrote that, where during the Initiative era. So during Secret Invasion, Mighty Avengers was a straight up secondary Avengers team, but then after Secret Invasion and they went into the Initiative stuff with the Avengers, the Initiative series, as well as bringing Ant-Man back to Mighty Avengers and sort of finishing off that series in between Secret Invasion and Siege. It has this vibe. So if you like those books in the modern era, go back to this in the classic era and pick that up. And with all that, I'll turn it back to you so we can jump in.
I was going to say, I'm going to have to take your word on all that because I never ended up reading the Thunderbolts. So that's another of the many gaps I have in my Marvel knowledge. But okay. I also just realized as you were talking that I forgot to put the comic viewer back up, and this is where things can go off the rails. Is for whatever reason my comic viewer causes frames to drop, but I'm hoping I've put it at a lower FPS, and I'm hoping that that solves our problem. So let's jump right into it. Speaking of newlyweds, seeing that picture there of Hawkeye carrying Mockingbird over the threshold as it was. The volume begins with excerpts from Avengers number 239, 243, 244, and 246. I believe all of these are written by Roger Stern, pencils by Al Milgrom and Carmine Infantino, inks by Joe Sinnott. Hawkeye returns to the Avengers mansion with his new bride, Mockingbird, after the events of his own mini-series, as you said, Stojr. We see the leadership of the Avengers has changed hands to the Vision, who has a vision for expanding the Avengers and opening a West Coast branch run by Hawkeye. And that's kind of all these little excerpts are. Stojr, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these are kind of, I've seen your comments, and my comments are going to be the same as yours. That I'm very glad that they're included. They just kind of feel weird out of context. You kind of get, you're not really sure what's going on, but it has that vibe of previously on, and you're starting a new episode, and you see all these clips from other shows that maybe you didn't see, but they're pertinent to the plot of what you're about to see. So glad they're here, but they're in and of themselves, they're kind of confusing.
Yeah, agreed. I'm glad that they're there. I appreciate the need to set up these scenes with the real story. Or the story that's happening in the Avengers. It's kind of what comics does well, right? Interweaving multiple storylines, and they were doing that in real time to eventually get this Avengers West Coast. It's a little odd them just being on their own here, but I get it. It does need to be there. I do wish the volume itself specified which pages belong to which issue of the Avengers, because it was a little jarring for the scene and the story to just suddenly change with no warning. That happened a couple times as I was reading those. It's just like, just a little bit of text at the beginning saying, okay, this is Avengers number 230 or 243 or whatever. That's all. But, all right, let us continue then to West Coast Avengers, the limited series number 1. Let's find the... Here we go. Man, I'm already getting the warning on my streaming software that I'm overloading the video settings. Whoops. Gosh. One of these days I'm going to learn the comic viewer, but I just need to find a different solution. All right. Audio should still be fine, though. Okay, West Coast Avengers, miniseries number 1, Avengers Assemble. There we go. Written by Roger Stern, pencils by Bob Hall, inks by Brett Breeding. Hawkeye and Mockingbird have set up the new West Coast Avengers headquarters, and the Vision has reached out to several heroes to make the team. This would be Tigra, Wonder Man, and James Rhodes as Iron Man. As Hawkeye gives the sales pitch, the Shroud seems to be attacking the building, and the new and reluctant team assemble, only to find that the Shroud had been hired by Tigra's partner, Jessica Drew, to help keep an eye on Tigra. And just in case anyone is unaware, Jessica Drew, that is Spider-Woman.
So I like Bob Hall's art here. I feel like some early Mark Bagley might have been emulating him because I did a double take. It was like, if you look at Mark's art during that like Atlantis Attacks era when he did, I think all the backups that went through all of those annuals, or just in some of his very early Spider-Man art, it looks very close to this, and especially in some panels. So I enjoy the art. I'm a big Mark Bagley fan, so by the transverse property, I am now a big Bob Hall fan. It looks like, but I like the art in these issues. I like the way that they've set this up in issue 1. It has me very interested for the series. So it hooked me. I'm on board.
Yeah. Again, as you say, it's really just a setup issue. We're being introduced to the characters, how they get along on its own, not too exciting, but I'm interested enough to know or to want to know what happens next. Let me try something different with moving to the next issue. Instead of doing my drop-down screen, let's just move it one at a time. Seems to like that a bit. Well, now I'm getting the warning. Man. All right.
Yeah, and while you're playing with that, I think that's something I've been playing with as thinking about as we've been reviewing these issues. Is that sometimes like you almost have to review them as a chunk, right? Like I don't think it's fair in a 4-issue limited series to have like a strong opinion on issue 1. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like you gotta rate the 4-issue mini series, right? Whereas in the rest of the book, these things are coming out monthly. They may stand on their own. There might be a short storyline that can be clumped together. So we're I think going to continue doing what we're doing here, but I think it's more of our opinion on the limited series as a whole, which will be more important.
Yeah.
But anyway, did I stall long enough for you to fix that?
You did. And also kind of the thing with how we have to look at these is how they're also set up in the book and how they came out in real time, right? Because we're not jumping into Avengers West Coast Avengers Volume 2 or Issue 2. We're going to Iron Man Annual number 7. All right. So here we go. Iron Man Annual number 7, When Giants Walk the Earth, written by Bob Harris, pencils by Luke McDonnell, and inks by Aiken and Garvey. Jim Rhodes, aka Iron Man, is having some doubts about being an Avenger since everyone thinks he's the original Iron Man, who we know is actually Tony Stark. Well, Tony Stark is taking a break. Jim Rhodes, he's taking over. He does gain some confidence after helping save an oil rig, but then comes upon a powerful foe named Goliath. Goliath is the former villain called Power Man, who fought the Avengers a couple times. So this guy, he had the name Power Man first, and then Luke Cage came around and took the name Power Man, so now he's going to take the name Goliath because there was a hero named Goliath who it's a mess. Anyway, the villain Goliath defeats Iron Man, who then gets the help of the new West Coast Avengers, who come up with a plan to take out the new giant villain. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
I mean, my big thought here is that like I don't know why we have to jump to Iron Man. Like it's fine in the epic, right? Like you can just keep reading and ignore it. But if I was collecting these things at the time, this feels like a major chunk of this story where you're trying to set up a West Coast Avengers, and you got to go get not only issue 2 of the miniseries, but you have to go find the Iron Man annual at the same time because this isn't just tangential. This seems like integral to the plot, right? Because Goliath goes through. So, I feel I like the issue. I kind of, spoiler not for content, but for my thoughts later. I like James Rhodes in this series, and I'm kind of annoyed that later on, like he just disappears, and I'm sure that has to do with what is going on in the Iron Man series. But I would have rather him stay the whole time and not have Tony Stark in here. I think his apprehension and him trying to prove himself while at the same time not being like overly squeamish, like not he's not like a complete rookie, so he there's a low bar, of like his own confidence, but he's not going to let people tear him down all the way to zero, so to speak. Yeah, I like this. I thought this issue's good. I was interesting of them setting up this sort of mad scientist villain in the background, and um, I enjoyed it. I just don't know why it's in an Iron Man annual, not in issue 2 of the series.
Yeah, particularly since, as you say, Goliath and this villain Goliath, he's going to play kind of a big role later on with the West Coast Avengers. But I enjoyed this story. It was a fun story. Maybe the parallels between Rhodey's insecurities and Goliath's insecurities was laid on a little thick, but I like the idea of it. The art felt a little stiff at times, and I was originally wondering if maybe this was a newbie tryout issue, as annuals sometimes are, but no, Luke McDonald was the regular artist on Iron Man when this came out, so I guess that's just his style. Having said that, though, there were a couple of panels I really enjoyed. I don't know why, but on page 61, which I think is what I have pulled up here, because the comic viewer doesn't always have the same page numbers as the volumes do. Yeah, this is it. So when Iron Man is bursting out of the ground, I thought that was cool. Of course, the size-changing panels of Goliath getting big, I zoomed past that just a moment ago, and those are always cool and dynamic, so I did enjoy that. The character of Carl Malice I thought was really interesting, actually. He originated in the Spider-Woman comics, and more recently, as in our time, okay, maybe spoilers for this one. More recently, he has been bonded with the Carnage symbiote in the Superior Carnage storyline. Carnage aside, though, I like the idea that this mad scientist can restore superpowers, but then he also learns the secrets behind those powers. Like he keeps the formula of the Pym particles separate, that he can just use at any time. So if someone in Marvel were smart, they could turn this guy into the greatest villain in the Marvel universe, right? With his knowledge, he could be making an army of superpowered villains with the knowledge of all these different powers that he's acquired. Or maybe if Marvel's smart, they're not going to do that because that could also break the universe. But, anyway, I just thought that was, I thought he was an interesting character.
Yeah, and just a quick comment, like going back to my Thunderbolts I mean, Goliath is in Thunderbolts, right?
The
So
villain Goliath
there's
is?
yeah, so
Okay.
that's that there's some connective tissue there with all of this. And Hawkeye is in Thunderbolts too, right? So somewhere around issue 20, maybe even 12, he starts leading the team or something like that. So that's the fact that you got at least 2 of these people, and probably more if I think about it more, that end up in Thunderbolts. But also with the Goliath personality, I know it was very messy and things like that, but like I'm pretty sure Hawkeye was Goliath for a hot minute back in
Yep.
classic Avengers era. So just to say that out loud, because when we were talking about how messy all that was, I mean, it relates directly not only to Hank, who will show up later in this book, but directly to Hawkeye.
All right. I do have a no prize that I want to give for this issue. So, in the Mighty Marvel tradition, we're going to give out some no prize awards, which gives us a chance to highlight some of the fun and weird things that are found within a volume, or highlight what the volume does best. So, without further ado, our first no prize for this volume is going to be the Uncle Remus Award, which I'm giving to Hawkeye on page 72. He references Briar Rabbit, the character from the African American folk tales that had been passed on orally by people who had been enslaved in the South. Briar Rabbit is known for defeating his enemies through his wit rather than using brute strength, which is exactly what our Avengers are doing in this issue. Stojr, I did a little bit of a deep dive into this. We're of a generation that probably still remembers Briar Rabbit from Disney's Song of the South. Do you recall that? Did you see that as a kid?
I do, and without painting myself too much as a Disney adult, we could have a whole episode of me talking about the retheming of Splash Mountain to Tiana's Bayou and my thoughts on that. But yes, I'm very much aware of this and saw it as a kid.
Okay, so yeah, we're old enough. Excuse me. That yeah, we know that, and to your point of Splash Mountain, that's probably where most people know about Song of the South until, as you say, now it's being fixed or changed. The film Song of the South was from the 1940s, and it contains some unflattering racial stereotypes, and it has pretty much been canceled now. But the story of Briar Rabbit is believed to be an evolution of African folk tales, and some may have been combined with Native American stories, although the person of Uncle Remus, who supposedly had written those tales, is believed to be the invention of the white folklorist Joel Chandler Harris, who wrote down the tales and popularized them in print. So there is some you know, interesting oral history to these stories of where they come from. That it's the stories themselves are not necessarily racially problematic because they are oral tales that came from enslaved African Americans. But the person of Uncle Remus and the guy who wrote them down is has those wistful memories of antebellum the South, right? So that's where the problems come.
That's what you get on this podcast. You get a history drop. You don't get that anywhere else.
Well,
Sure, hit that like and subscribe button.
again, I went down a weird rabbit hole, and when I was looking this up too, I happened to be visiting my father-in-law, and after I did that deep dive and researched everything, I went into his kitchen, and he just so happened to have a jar of Briar Rabbit blackstrap molasses, and like I didn't even know such a thing existed. I put a picture of it on my Blue Sky, but anyway,
Yeah, my dad is very much into music and things like that, and the idea of like YouTube and being able to watch like concerts of guys from the '70s and things like that is great. So when he found the Song of the South, like he loves the music in it, and he's just like like, oh, this is great, you can't find this anywhere. I'm like, well, there's reasons for that. So like the racial stuff is kind of going over his head because he grew up with it even more
right,
than we
yeah.
did, right? He's for him it was like a kid thing, like he saw it when he was a kid. And but yeah, so he'll bring that up on his phone, and he went through a period of time where he was showing us all of the YouTube clips that people were putting up there of the songs from the movie. So
All right, well, let's continue on. West Coast Avengers miniseries number 2, Blanking Out. As Wonder Man is moving house to the Avengers compound, he stumbles upon a blank robber who cannot be touched, and he calls himself the Blank. I said he was a blank robber. He's a bank robber who calls himself the Blank. I think my more kind of Western drawl is coming out there. All right, anyway, failing to capture the Blank, Wonder Man calls on the Avengers, who make a plan to survey the city and confront him, and when they do, the Blank manages to escape by blowing up a gas station. But he returns to his apartment, and in the process of charging his force field belt, which makes him the Blank, Graviton, the master of gravity, emerges from his machine. All right, Soldier, your thoughts?
I really like the reveal of Gravitron here. Tying this to a villain that is a threat to the main Avengers, but not necessarily like the one of the top 5 that people think about when they think about the Avengers. I think the Blank is interesting. The way that he kind of fell into some of his villain arc here. He's not necessarily just this squabbling or this like whiny like nobody, like like he's not a victim, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
But he's also not like the smartest guy in the room. I mean, he just kind of stumbled upon this stuff and figured it out. So I find that interesting, right? Like he's continually choosing to do the wrong thing, even if with these problems kind of falling on his lap, so to speak. And how this affects Wonder Man makes Wonder Man's character a little bit more interesting. You would think he'd be maybe one of the more confident members of the team, along with Hawkeye, because he's one of the longest members,
Hmm.
just from a time duration. But you can see how this really throws him through a loop.
Yeah. I thought the story was fine. Not anything that stands out too much personally, but I am interested to see where it goes with Graviton and how the team continues to come together, as kind of you were mentioning there. I was really impressed with Bob Hull's art on this one. The design of the blank, using halftone or screen tone, I'm not really sure which one, but still maintaining some good detail, I thought was really interesting. The tall panel of Iron Man dropping sand on the gas fire, I thought was also a clever use of space. So, really, really good art on this one, I thought. I was thinking about it. I actually met Bob Hall at a convention maybe 2 years ago or something. I hope I met him on he was just having a bad day. I hope, because he seemed a little, I don't know, standoffish. But his art is good. I really enjoy his art. So.
Yeah.
All right, West Coast Avengers miniseries number 3, Taking Care of Business. Wonder Man can't get over how the blank was able to get away, but Tiger was able to talk him into doing a little investigating, and they gain the help of the Shroud. The Shroud follows a lead to a new mob boss in town, which turns out to be Graviton, who has been making moves in the underworld with the blank as his lackey. A battle ensues, and Graviton easily defeats the 3 heroes, and he's about to ruin Hawkeye's inaugural weenie roast. All right, Stojr.
I didn't expect the weenie roast comment, even though it's in the show notes. So I mean, look, it's hard for me to like micro pick apart these issues in the
Yeah.
miniseries because I kind of take it whole. I guess my takeaway from this issue is like should Shroud? Are we trying to make Shroud have his own series?
Yeah.
Did he maybe have his own series at the time? Like I'm not sure if we're trying to use like Shroud popularity to get people interested in West Coast Avengers, if we're just using the fact that he's physically on the West Coast and we're leaning into that. But he doesn't join the team, at least not during this volume, and I can't really spoil like West Coast Avengers long term because even though I own them, I haven't read them all. So I'm just kind of like, are we doing too much here, trying to make Shroud happen at the same time if he's not going to be there? Like I don't know, just that was my takeaway. But otherwise, it's fine. It's continuing what we're trying to do here. I like the sort of mob elements, although it feels like with the mob elements, it feels a little cheesy after reading things like Daredevil and stuff like that. Like it feels like it's like cartoonish mob because you just kind of talk about that the mob exists and that there's these different factions. But if you came from reading like some of the Daredevil at the time or something like that with the Kingpin, it's way more grittier and darker and stuff over there. So
Hmm.
anyway, your thoughts?
Yeah, it kind of similar. It's just kind of continuing on with the story. The story's fine. I was impressed by the smoke effects that were happening for the Shroud. I'm assuming that was Inker Brett Breeding that was doing that. It looked like he was creating the smoke by using his fingerprint. I'm afraid to go back and actually look at it on the comic viewer because of the warnings I'm getting of drop frames. But maybe we need to start doing this more like we do the X-Men ones, where I just put the covers on the individual slides. The slides don't seem to be a problem. But anyway, that I thought was neat. The cover was neat, but I've already moved the comic reader to be the cover for Avengers West Coast number 4. So let's just get into it. Finale. Brett Breeding is joined by Peter Berardi on finishes. Tigra and the Shroud managed to make it out alive and were rescued by Iron Man, but Graviton has been holding Wonder Man underwater for hours. The remaining Avengers hatch a plan to rescue Wonder Man and bring Graviton to justice by infiltrating Graviton's mansion, disguised as Madame Mask and other members of the Magia. Mockingbird managed to roofie all the guests at Graviton's mansion, and after enough distractions, the Avengers keep Graviton off balance long enough for the drugs to do their thing and knock him out. Oh yeah, and Wonder Man makes it out alive since he's learned that he doesn't have to breathe anymore. All right, Stojer, your thoughts?
So I mean, look, as a whole, I like this series, right? Like, it's enough. I don't have this super high bar for that I'd have with other things. This is my secondary Avengers series, and is there enough interest here for me to kind of pick up the main series and follow these characters that are not your Wasps and Captain America and whoever else is in the main series at that time, Vision, Scarlet Witch, and stuff like that. So this all it captures my attention. I thought it was a solid story. I like it was an interesting way that they took down Graviton. I'm gonna have to learn to stop putting the R in there. I keep saying Gravitron instead of Ton.
It's the Transformers' fault.
I'm not sure where they got the Madame Mask from. Like, they just fabricated that very quickly. I know that the rest of her was more of the gem, but she throws away the mask and still is there. But yeah, I thought it was a really good choice to give them a strong villain to go up against in this miniseries, as well as introduce something like the Blank. I don't know if he ever reappears, but I'm happy with this. I thought it's pretty good, and I think it's good to have them cut their teeth on something like this.
Yeah, I don't know if the Blank ever reappears either, but I thought he was interesting. I really liked the look of the Blank. That's something that you can only get in comic books, right? So I enjoyed that, and I thought this was a satisfying ending to the miniseries. I thought it wrapped it up really well. And while I didn't quite catch Mockingbird was the bartender, as soon as I saw Madame Mask enter, I realized, wait, that was Tigra, because we had been introduced to her ability to change her appearance in the previous issue. She had the dark hair. I was like, oh, that's what's going on here. They're infiltrating. So I thought it was super clever, but there were enough clues dropped that you, the reader, could have figured it out on your own, and that's the sign of a good mystery, right?
Yeah, and I think like the girls kind of talking about like having this side conversation at the bar about them sort of not letting on that they're worried or scared. I forget exactly what they were saying, but like that distracts you from who the bartender is. Like, because
Yeah.
I started to wonder, like, are these two girls more important than they are, or like what are we trying to say here? And then you kind of move on to the action, and yeah, same thing with you with the Madame Mask. I'm like, all right, well, that's weird that she just randomly appeared. That's got to be something else. But I think they do a good job kind of distracting you from the bartender with that side conversation with those two girls.
Yep. All right. Let's head on to the Mighty Avengers number 250, World Power, written by Roger Stern, breakdowns by Al Milgrom, inks by Joe Sinnott for pages 1 through 10, and for pages 31 through 40, inks by Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey for pages 11 to 20, and then inks by Roy Richardson for pages 21 through 30. Man, I wonder if that means the book was running late, or it's just a really big book, and hence why they have all the inkers. All right, let's see. Professor Leclerc and other astronomers have discovered that the Earth has been slowing in its rotation at an unnatural level. After informing Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel, she investigates and comes upon Maelstrom and his minions. Well, Monica brings the news to the Avengers, who assemble both the East and West Coast teams to investigate, and they find that Maelstrom has been siphoning off the Earth's kinetic energy to make himself bigger and more powerful. A whopping big fight ensues, and the only way the Avengers defeat Maelstrom is by overfeeding him kinetic energy, causing him to grow at a much faster rate, and he then disperses into the universe. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
kind of disappointed in this issue. Like this is like an anniversary issue. It's the first big team up of the two Avengers teams. I mean the art's okay. It's just kind of It's kind of there. Like I wasn't necessarily a fan of it on all the pages. Wasn't really following or invested or caring that much about the villain in this particular issue. And his little team of sidekicks. I did really enjoy and think that they laid out pretty well the thought bubble page when they're all kind of traveling to the villain, and everybody's having the sort of their independent thoughts about how things are going on the mission, and so on and so forth. Like I thought that the layout of that and the writing was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe part of this is because we haven't gotten that next Epic collection. Like this is not a main Avengers team. I'm necessarily invested in or care that much about. I mean, you got Star Fox rather, and Hercules, and Vision and Scarlet Witch, and the Wasp in a very odd costume in these, and I like Monica Rambeau, and I thought like she was pretty strong in this issues with the kind of that artificial fear that was inserted into her and trying to overcome that. But otherwise, the issues got a little bit disappointing for me for like a big anniversary team up issue. What did you think?
Yeah, it's not a bad story, but the dialogue did feel stilted. Like, for example, when Tigra gives Captain Marvel her talk about how to get over her fears, it just felt generic and not that motivating. I usually expect a little bit better from Roger Stern, but that's okay. The art I thought was a little hit or miss. I'll chalk that up to the rotating door on inkers for this one, maybe. But I agree with you. This page that I've got up there, page 166 through 167, has a nice little symmetry to it. However, I want to know just what the heck, here I'm going to zoom in, what the heck is this face that Hercules is pulling here on page 166, right? If it weren't for the fact that he has a thought balloon in the following panel, I'd be convinced there are no thoughts to be had here at all, right? He's just got this dumb, stupid grin plastered on him, and it's really weird and really awkward, and honestly, I kind of dig it. I don't know why. Here, tell you what, Stojr, I'm so enamored with Hercules there that, my computer's running slow. This is not going to work. Maybe it will. Here we go. Yeah, I'm going to make Hercules my co-pilot now. Right over there.
There you go.
There you go. So that little dumb grin over there is just going to follow us for the remainder of this episode.
Hey, did you have the Thor epics, right? Like, so,
yes.
Because he's he's a big character around like that Thunderstrike era of Thor, and I think even in the Simonson era, he's kind of gets introduced more as like a buddy of Thor. So I still have to kind of read through all that, but I think it's on brand for him to have the dumb smirk on his face.
Yep. But I don't know why that just stood out to me so much. So there we go. My buddy Hercules over here. Let's see. Can I tickle his chin a little bit? There we go. Let's see. I thought there was a pretty good splash page on 175 here. Maelstrom being this big old giant holding on to both Hercules and Wonder Man, with Tiger climbing up him, Hawkeye uselessly firing arrows at him, and then Captain Marvel's just frozen in fear at the bottom. I thought that was a lot of good fun, but it is a convoluted story, but that's okay. I didn't mind it. All right.
Okay.
Let's head on to Avengers West Coast number 1. This is the real series now. Teammates by Steve Englehart writing, breakdowns by Al Milgrom, inks by Joe Sinnott. The newly retired Hank Pym decides to stop by the Avengers West Coast compound to look at the imprisoned Goliath and find out how Goliath got his growing powers. Meanwhile, Wonder Man, Tigra, and Iron Man are mysteriously attacked by robots. Well, it turns out that Ultron 12 has attacked, and as the team investigates, Ultron gets away, but Hawkeye has a plan to defend their compound, and particularly Hank Pym, whom we assume is Ultron's target. Well, it turns out Ultron didn't even know Hank Pym was there, but was working with the Man-Ape to rescue Goliath and to capture Wonder Man at the direction of the Grim Reaper. Boy, that's a bunch of villains just thrown in there. Ultron then changes his objective to take Pym as well, and the three baddies manage to escape and give the West Coast Avengers a sound defeat. Alright, your thoughts, sir?
I enjoy this as a first issue of the main series. I thought the art was pretty solid throughout this issue. It feels a little weird that we swapped Rhodes for Tony in here. But I guess again going back to whatever's happening in Iron Man, I guess we had to. I wish we didn't have to. We got GoBot Iron Man armor. I don't know who remembers GoBots,
Oh, I
but
remember.
I can't like not think of GoBots when I see this armor here. And it's a little weird to see the Man-Ape after watching the Black Panther movies, and I don't have a lot of classic Black Panther comics to kind of see that, but like he kind of he's a weird character here, and he's really cool in the movies. So there's they definitely plussed him up in the movies there. I like that Ultron's the villain here. I mean, you get between Ultron and the Grim Reaper, you get a lot of good ties to some of our characters here with Hank and Wonder Man being in the book. So I think that all makes sense. And even with Goliath, and you think about where he's gotten his powers from, and stealing the name that Hawkeye at least had for a hot minute. There's a little bit of mirroring of some of these villains, or at least like linkages to the heroes here. They're not just random until you get to Man-Ape, and do we have the other character yet, or is he in the next issue? I think he's just the Man-Ape in this one. So they start to throw in some other characters that don't have those relationships. I guess is my point. But for now, we have at least some threads. What did you think?
I have some mixed feelings on this one, actually. Usually the setup for a new series is the easy part, but this one felt like it dragged a little. Now, granted, this is not entirely new because we did have the limited series, but still, usually the first one, it's kind of, what's going to happen. You're pulling people together, you're setting them up, and so forth. I do tend to like Al Milgram's art, but this felt a little plain to me, and maybe it's because he's just doing the breakdowns and Joe Sinnott is carrying more of the load with the inks. However, the battle against Ultron inside the ship, I thought that was really cool. Let me see if I can pull that up on the comic viewer without breaking things. Let's see, that's probably going to be a little towards the end here. Yeah, here we go. I was thinking this panel in particular. Let's see, I don't recall what page this is on, but when they're inside the ship and there's all those beams just everywhere, I thought that was neat. It was a unique setting, and I thought that was awesome. It was also a bit complex, so it was also a little hard to follow, so that was kind of problematic though. And while I like the callbacks to other comics, maybe I appreciate the captions. Let me rephrase this. I like callbacks to earlier comics. I like there being a continuity, and I appreciate captions that refers to past events, so that we can follow up, so we can look at those things. That happens in a great excess in this issue. Maybe it's because Mark Gruenwald is the editor, and continuity was very much his thing. And again, I do love continuity. There was a big conversation going on in Curtis Finley's Discord about this that I've been chiming in, and heck, Stojr, you and I have been kind of chiming in on this. Part of the reason why I fell in love with Marvel more than DC, and maybe even part of the reason why I became an historian, is because I enjoy continuity. History is nothing but continuity, right? It's everything that's happened in the past matters, it leads to today. So I like having the little captions that tell us where all these things happened previously. However, it is excessive in this one. I counted, and this is a 39-page story. There's 16 references. That means 30% of the pages in this issue have a reference to something that happened previously. And that is a lot. That's a lot to keep up with. I would rather just kind of one or two of those when it's pertinent, but this one is really drawing on a bunch of things that happened previously. All right, let's go ahead and go on, unless you've got other thoughts there, Stojr.
No, no, I nothing you said is anything I disagree with. I guess I'll add on real quick with the art. I did, yeah. While I enjoyed the art in this issue, I do agree with that sort of simplistic comment. You know, in some ways, it reminded me, especially with the head balloons on the last panel, reminded me a bit of like what's his name Ron Friends,
Hmm.
or something like that. It just the something about it just kind of reminded me of Ron in some of the art there, and I like Ron's art. So like I didn't mind the simplicity of it because I felt like because I it was appealing to me overall. But I would agree with that comment. I also don't know like what the heck is going on with the girders in the Ultron battle. Like
Oh
they're just
yeah,
everywhere and going every direction, which is cool for like a setting, but like practicality, like what is this?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
Why has
So
he done
anyway,
that?
yeah, we can move on to the next one, but
Okay. Well, oddly enough, like the limited series for Avengers West Coast or West Coast Avengers, now the full run is interspersed with another comic right off the bat here, right? So we get West Coast Avengers issue 1. Now we get Vision and Scarlet Witch issue 1. All right, this is entitled Lovers, written by Steve Englehart, pencils by Richard Howell, inks by Andy, I'm going to slaughter this, Andy Muchinski. Muchinski? I'm going to assume that's right. Let's see. The Vision is being interrogated by Henry Gyrick for events that took place in the Avengers comic, but rather than being subjected to such scrutiny, both he and the Scarlet Witch decide to resign from the Avengers. The two then attempt to buy a new home, but are soon attacked by zombies, which has been summoned by Necra and Black Talon, who seem to be working in conjunction with the Grim Reaper. Well, the zombies manage to capture Wanda, but Vision escapes and tracks down his wife. In the escape, the Vision discovers the body of Simon Williams, but not as Wonder Man. So clearly, the West Coast Avengers need to be contacted to sort this mess out, because how the heck is there another Simon Williams that is not Wonder Man? All right, Stoger, what are your thoughts?
um, it feels weird that they never change it to civilian clothes when they're trying to buy a house. Like, I mean, it's not like comics never had people in civilian clothes at this point in time. So like, we're just gonna walk around with your brightly red, green, and yellow cape, or red, green, and yellow outfit with a yellow cape, and your sort of your giant headdress to put to negotiate your escrow on your mortgage here. Like, I don't know. That seemed a little cartoony and odd.
That's how they
I
don't need
think that
collateral. They've got proof, right? They're Avengers. They don't need to.
I guess. It makes me think of like during Burns' era of Fantastic Four, how Reed and Sue left for a little bit, and like they lived in, the suburbs or wherever they were at. But like Reed even went so far as to like kind of change his face and use his manipulation power to change his face. Like they were in civilian clothes that time. Like why are we drawing attention to ourselves with this weird car, weird ancient car that they're driving around like it's 1920s? And in full costume to buy a house. But anyway, um, the I appreciate the horror elements like as something different, but like they're not scary at all. It just kind of comes off as a little bit silly, and maybe that's the art that plays into that. But I don't recall seeing zombies in an Avengers comic before, so I think like that's interesting. But they don't really feel like a threat. But
Yeah.
then you get to these other characters, and I feel like they got lost on the way to a Morbius volume, and I'm not sure who they are or why they're here, and it's really odd, in my opinion. And then overall, eh, as the kids would say online, or at least as far as I understand, like you're doing too much. Like, why are we doing a crossover in issue 2 of the Avengers comic, or not even issue 2? I guess it started in issue 1. To cross over with another limited series. Like, can we just get a couple of issues under our belt first and like breathe? And I can't think of any comics off the top of my head that that benefit from that, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that maybe sales wise they do, but I feel like there's so many of those 90s comics, and I know this is the mid 80s, but so many of those 90s comics that did things like that that just came off very gimmicky, whether it was like, we're going to kick you off as part of a limited as part of a crossover series, or we're just going to insert arbitrarily Wolverine into issue 2, whatever it is. So not a fan of that, but otherwise, you know, I can appreciate where they're going to build up the relationship between the Vision and and the other characters and the Grim Reaper and Simon.
Yeah. Um, I didn't think this was bad. Maybe a little bit drawn out. The retelling of Wanda's childhood, in particular, that seemed a little much. But given that, so far as I'm aware, this is her first miniseries, then maybe that was justified in that context. Um, I'll admit, when I was reading this, I don't think I knew that the Vision was the original Human Torch. Maybe I did know that at some point and I just forgot, but I did not recall that. I knew the bit about Wonder Man's brain patterns being associated with the Vision, that they had somehow, and I don't know how that happened. I don't think I've read those things yet, but I was aware of that. But I didn't know about the Human Torch bit. So I did think it was kind of nice to see some of the Golden Age heroes being repurposed like this. Again, I don't know if that's new to this or if that's something that that had already been established and was just being reestablished here. I don't know. I haven't read enough Avengers. But
I didn't
yeah,
remember that either, to be honest with you. And I feel like it's something that must have gotten retconned because at some point in the far Marvel future, the original Human Torch comes back or is around or something, and the
oh
Vision's
really?
still around. So I don't.
Ah,
I mean, at some. I know I've read a comic with the. I can't speak to the specifics, but I know I read a comic at some point in time after the 80s that the original Human Torch was around. So I don't know how they figure that out with this Vision stuff. So to me, I almost when I read something like that I know eventually gets even more confusing or retconned, I just kind of mentally skip over it.
yeah.
Like interesting for the time, but if we've already undone it, then I'm not going to worry about it too much.
All right, well, I'm going to give this one another no prize award. All right, this one is, oops, here we go. This is the Analog Can't Do That award. This is given to the weird, funky remote control that Ultron holds, which is labeled Wonder Man Brain Patterns. I guess that is one way to visualize something that has no physical form, right? When brain patterns are removed from a human. Just what exactly is a brain pattern anyway? I don't know. But I just thought it was hilarious. He has a little remote with 6 buttons on it. It just clearly says brain patterns.
So I'll throw out a question for you or a potential answer. I don't know,
Okay.
and I agree with the no prize, but a potential answer might be it's them, it's their spirit, right? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
think about did you see the Captain America movies? Like at least the first two, like your MCU.
Yes.
So like Aram Zola, was in the first movie, German scientist working with the Red Skull,
Mm-hmm.
and in the second movie, he's spoilers. He's True Zola, where he's like in a machine, right? And he's in the machine at the army base, and then tries to kill Cap and Black Widow. Um, his brain patterns get put into the computer. Like he spends 30 years or 40 years before he dies during the time that Cap's on ice to put his brain patterns into that computer. So like for that as an analogy, like he's taking his consciousness and putting it into something electronic.
Mm-hmm.
If you apply that logic to the storyline, I think that's where some of the questioning that comes in the next issues and the motivation of the Grim Reaper is like which of these things is my brother if the brain patterns were copied? Like if which of them is Simon in the spirit of him if I have two or three of them around right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like for them or in comic book language, it's your spirit, it's your consciousness, it's your whatever. And then that leads to an interesting question is, well, if I got two of you, which one is it?
Yeah.
You know?
No, and I agree that is an interesting conundrum that if we accept the idea that we can somehow copy a person's essence, their thought process, the I guess their brain patterns, right? Yeah, what does that mean when it's put in someone else? Sure. how do they do that? How are they explaining that in the technology? And I know it's comics; they don't have to, right? They just have a thing that does it. But I would think if maybe it's because the world we live in, if we're able to digitize a person's being, the key word there I think is digitize, right? Digital, which this contraption that he has is not, so far as I can tell, right? They don't quite have the computing power for that at this time.
Yeah, I mean, and just to tie it, not to belabor this issue too long, but like to tie it back to what's happening in, in our world today in 2025, going into 2026, like there are, AI models and bots that are being trained to be like you, right? There's
Yeah.
a vision that Microsoft Copilot, just picking on that for a second, because a lot of people use Outlook for email, can respond to your emails with your tone, with your thought process, with the things that right? Like you fast forward 5 years, that's what people are thinking will happen, right? And it becomes this point of like, well, is that like a digital me? Like, or is it just copying me or trying to be me? I know that that's a stretch from what's in the comic book here, but it's the closest that we have to something happening in real life today.
Yeah, geez, what this was probably 1985, 1986 when this is coming out, and here we are, gosh, 40 years later, and the brain pattern machinations of Ultron are coming into reality. Ultron is winning. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on to West Coast Avengers number 2. This one is entitled Sons. Kim DeMolder takes over finishes from Joe Sinnott. The West Coast Avengers meet up with Vision and Scarlet Witch to exchange notes, and it seems both groups are dealing with the Grim Reaper's revenge tour on anyone who is related to Simon Williams, which would include both Wonder Man and the Vision. The combined groups do some investigating in New Jersey, including interviewing Simon's mother, and they get a hint that Las Vegas may be their next destination. But I forget why, given that we saw all the villains were also in New Jersey just a moment previously, but that's what it is. Okay, as the Avengers fly back west, they are then attacked by Ultron. Alright, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
Um, Very overly complicated story, and I get that maybe they're trying to, you know, do a lot of callbacks to previously complicated stories, but there's just so much exposition in this book, that it kind of gets a little boring and gets lost, for some of the backstory side of things. And then my other big comment is just like, holy supremacist Batman. Like that, I didn't realize that, Simon's brother was racist. So like that
Oh,
came out
yeah.
of nowhere for
Yeah.
me. And look, he's a villain, so sure, right? And I like that Manny like starts to stand up for himself, but you're already a little on edge with the coloring and calling and seeing a black character walk around the book with Manny, but then to like just have the racial stuff just like thrown right out there, like is was a little jarring for a 1985 comic for me. And again, I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it. I like that it drives certain motivation and certain story things. I just in my Grim Reaper readings, and it's not extensive, I had no idea that he was just a straight up racist. Meanwhile, he's sleeping with the, albino black vampire thing that fights in 6-inch heels.
Yeah.
So, hey, to each their own, whatever.
Yeah, the blatant racism of the Grim Reaper feels weird. There's no subtlety to it whatsoever. And granted, I was a small child in the '80s, and maybe people were more out in the open about that sort of thing. I don't recall. Heck, actually, come to think of it, there's a city not too far away from where I live in North Carolina that has this big, beautiful park in it that has a bunch of gorgeous Christmas lights around this time of year. My wife and I are probably going to go out there later this evening, maybe. It's a bit of a drive, but it's fine. Anyway, that park was closed to African Americans all the way into the 80s. They only allowed black people to go to this park in like the late 80s, early 90s. It's just shocking that there was outright open racism still in this country that late. I mean, I know we still have some problems with that now, but it's nowhere near
Yeah.
just out in the open like this, I don't think. Well, not widely.
I mean, yeah, we could go down a rabbit hole there, but yes, I think
Yeah.
like the idea that everything has been structurally the same or structurally fixed for a long time is not that long a time. Even and you can argue that it's not all structurally fixed.
Yeah.
But you know, I use the same argument with or a similar reminder. I was talking to my mom over Thanksgiving and had mentioned that, like, you know, and I forget the exact date. I knew it in the conversation with her, but now on Sunday morning I forget. But it was something like, yeah, you know, by the way, like you were just like 5 years earlier, like from when you got your car loan as a 20-year-old, like you weren't allowed to do that without a man's signature. Like, you know, it was something like in the late 60s or early 70s. I forget exactly when that was,
Mm-hmm.
but like women couldn't take out loans or get credit cards without, you know, their father or their husband's permission. And, you know, that didn't change until, you know, she was, you know, well past her teens or something like that. So these things are more recent than you think.
Yep. Yeah, gosh, last point, and then I'll actually get back to the comics. When I first moved to North Carolina, my wife and I went to a museum and were looking around, and they had a picture of a Klan rally that was in like 1984, and I just thought, holy heck, in 1984 the members of the Klan felt comfortable enough to be out in the open marching down a street. Again, yeah, you think about that as happening further in the past, but it's not that long ago. Okay, as for the actual comic, aside from our recent read-through of Morbius, I'm not sure I've read much of Steve Englehart's work, but I'm starting to find myself finding a similar opinion as what I had on the Morbius comics. The ideas here are good, but I don't care for the execution. The idea of the Grim Reaper trying to recapture Simon Williams' consciousness from these two different entities is an interesting concept, but the way all these characters interact just feels off, right? Like Tiger's obsession with wanting Simon to be an innocent man, or Iron Man suddenly caring about his secret identity when everyone was present, already knew what his identity was. And again, heck, the Grim Reaper's blatant racism. Again, it all just feels kind of weird. There was also an unnecessary amount of flashbacks in this one, I thought. But anyway, let's move on to Vision and Scarlet Witch number 2. Hopefully I'm not going so fast as to annoy the streaming software. Okay, here we go. This one is called Brothers. Ultron's attack on the Quinjet causes the Avengers to crash in the Rockies and be captured by the evil robot and taken to the Grim Reaper's hideout. Once imprisoned, the Reaper releases Wonder Man to wipe his memory, but Wonder Man strikes back and is aided by the appearance of Mockingbird. All the Avengers are then freed, and both Wonder Man and the Vision go hunting after their brother, the Grim Reaper, who has a change of perspective and throws himself into a deep cave. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, uh, I feel like these stories are just unnecessarily confusing. And you know, it's disappointing because I'll give a plug for people that want to read stories with these characters later on. The Vision miniseries, which is from the 2010s or something like that, is a really strong, great book. It's a 6 or 8 issue series. It touches on a lot of these characters, it touches on a lot of the history. You may not want to read that if you don't want to be spoiled, because there's a lot of like looking back and things that happen. But that is a really strong series, a much better use of all of these characters is my point there, right? There's also an Avengers story, which might be the follow-up with some of these characters with the Grim Reaper, which was my first experience with the Grim Reaper, where he brings some Avengers back from the dead and you know, has zombie Avengers fighting the main Avengers team. And I thought that was really cool. So like looking at this, it just kind of falls flat. Like neither Vision or Wonder Man can fly at this point. I guess he doesn't have his jetpack belt to save his brother. They just kind of like let the villain, race his brother just die without much fanfare. Like it just felt a little odd. The plane crash, I was a little surprised that like after the plane crash, like everybody was captured. Like it's
Hmm.
like they all just got knocked out and had amnesia. And Ultron just captures them all. But like I don't know, like the plane landed somewhat safely, so like Iron Man couldn't fight still or something like
Yeah, and
so.
to
You
that
know,
point, how many times have the X-Men escaped a crashing or exploding plane just fine, right? Um,
yeah, I mean
yeah,
seriously, like, and they don't have armor or magical amulets or hex powers or whatever. So I mean, I could get it that like Hawkeye would be knocked out and maybe even like Tigra or
Tigra,
something
yeah.
like that. But like it just felt like you'd think like Wanda and Iron Man would have been okay with that plane crash somehow. And and even like the end, they're all in these little hamster balls at the end, and we just kind of yada yada past that like there's some sort of device that can like keep them in these little hamster balls. So it's just like too much exposition and not enough focus on like the main story to make things interesting, in my opinion. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. This continues to be convoluted, and while I appreciate the need to sort out the mess of both Wonder Man and the Vision having the memories of Simon Williams, I don't quite understand the direction that the Grim Reaper takes at the end, where he just decides to kill himself. Again, I think this is another good example of a good concept, but just poor execution.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I feel the need to pull down the Avengers Epic Collection. It's titled Fear the Reaper. It's from '92, so I
Mm.
don't know if the Grim Reaper makes an appearance in between, or if this is him coming back from the dead. I don't remember, but I do remember it being there's some solid art, some solid issues in there. So.
All right, well, let's go ahead and head on to West Coast Avengers number 3, Singleton. Joe Sinnott returns on inks. Tiger is feeling a little like the fifth wheel and decides to leave the Avengers alone as they return to their coastal compound. While in LA, she encounters Craven the Hunter, who is stealing from the African American Art Museum, or Art Gallery. Tiger manages to hold her own while working on Instinct, but eventually gets trapped. Lucky for her, Hawkeye and Mockingbird decide to go look for her, and they save her. Oh yeah, and Hank Pym is going to become the Jarvis of the West Coast, and the Thing shows up with a flat tire. Yes, the Thing of the Fantastic Four. All right, Stoger, your thoughts?
So I mean, I enjoyed this issue. Like, I don't have a lot of memories of pre Craven's Last Hunt Craven
Mm.
stories. So I appreciated that this was a relatively solid Craven's story that didn't feature Spider-Man, and it's not one of like Craven's clones or kids or whatever in the modern day. Like you get some more of this now, but this is pre Craven's Last Hunt. So I like that. I thought the art, while kind of going back to a little bit of that simplistic nature from earlier, the comment we had for earlier issues, was pretty consistently solid for what it was throughout the whole issue. I liked it,
Hmm.
and I thought it was really good. Um, the idea with like Tigra like kind of making out with everybody is like starting to get weirder and weirder as we go through it. Like I get that she's like her cat personality's like taking over or something there, but like also by the same token, like my cat doesn't try and like kiss me all the time. Like that wants nothing to do with me. Shouldn't she be like standoffish and telling everybody to F off like until she needs something? Like that would be a little bit more on brand for the cat mentality here. So I like this issue. I thought the art was a step up. I'm wondering, without doing the research right now, if this is the last or one of the last appearances of Craven before Craven's last time, because he was used very sparingly.
Yeah.
I think when we did that episode, we talked about his last appearance with Spider-Man. So we didn't. I don't know that we necessarily referenced this in our read through of the Craven's Last Hunt volume. Um, I hope the thing sticks around. I like the thing. So, and I remember during this era where he left the Fantastic Four from the Fantastic Four volume. So it's cool to see him show up here.
Yeah, agree with the thing. As I said at the very beginning of this stream, the thing is probably my second favorite character. I don't know about Craven. The thing about Tigra, I've been wondering about this. That they're playing up her cat persona is just horny, right? I think I mentioned when we did the Fantastic Four stream that I had been watching Bewitched with my wife, and there was an episode where a cat is turned into a human to become a model for the agency that the witch's husband works for, and I can't remember their names now, but they made that character super horny too, like that somehow a cat persona, which I don't understand that at all. I mean, I've got a cat too, and she's very affectionate, but she's not. It's more she's affectionate because she wants me to feed her, not because she's expecting anything else, right?
Yep.
But I agree with you with this issue. This is getting better. Maybe it's because the story was a bit more straightforward in this one. The developments make sense. I do kind of like the idea of Hank Pym joining on as a manager of sorts, right? He does have this legacy with the Avengers, but he's retired from being a superhero. But he's a perspective that would be good and useful for the Avengers to have. So I like that idea. And it gets you the opportunity to have Ultron and other things involved, right? So, yeah, no, gosh, come to think of it, that dynamic which we're going to see coming up of how to deal with Janet with the original Avengers, right? Because I don't know if I guess their marriage fully ended. I don't know if it was strained or if they actually divorced. I'm not certain on that,
Yeah,
but
they did.
yeah.
I think they're divorced. I mean, it might. I don't remember the issue where somebody physically signed the papers, but I think he references that they're divorced.
Okay. Well, let's head on to Avengers West Coast number 4, Master Pandemonium. The Thing definitively states that he does not want to join the Avengers, but when trying to leave for his new wrestling gig, he catches a superpowered woman called Firebird who is falling from the sky. We get a recap of Firebird's origin, further cat-like behavior from Tigra, and Wonder Man confesses to embezzling on the Johnny Carson show. But the Thing's wrestling show, the villain at the Thing's wrestling show, the villain Pandemonium arrives and causes havoc with his detachable limbs that turn into demons. What the heck did I smoke? But okay. Wonder Man was present, and he calls the Avengers, who managed to fight Pandemonium away, but not to capture him. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
Weird. Look, I have a hard time seeing Pandemonium without knowing something that I'm not going to spoil that happens much later in Avengers West Coast volumes. Because it's even weirder than what we're seeing here.
Oh, really?
And all I can think about is that, right? So that is yeah, that sticks with me because that's how I know him. So reading this, it makes me just think of the future. This is before Inferno, I believe. So, but still in the time period of Ghostbusters. So the idea that we have like these demons or ghosts or goblins or whatever that are that are just kind of there to fight is interesting. I don't think I've commented yet on the sky cycle of Hawkeye flying around in his like GI Joe little plot device. I mean, it's because it doesn't make any sense. It's not like a hover thing. It just flies. Like that's it. It's a sky motorcycle with a glass dome in the front to protect his uh, it's as a bug shield, I guess.
I think that
So
was wasn't that explained in his miniseries? I read the miniseries a
it
while
very well
ago,
may
but
be. Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think it's not new. It's just I haven't mentioned how much it reminds me of the. I mean, do you remember the GI Joe ones that have that?
not really, to be honest. I
Yeah,
remember G.I. Joe, but I
there
don't
was
remember that.
there was because you could buy them like they were a
Of
vehicle
course.
that you could put the GI Joes in. And so they were these little flying pods that had like the little plastic, shields that came around the front of it. They were the coolest thing, but like, they don't make any logical sense. But so yeah, I mean, look, I like that thing's sticking around. I appreciate the villain, and I might actually really like the villain if they did good things with him after this, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with the villain's appearance here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's supernatural, and he's able to make these things out of his body. That's somewhat interesting. He doesn't do anything overly wrong or corny in this issue. I'm definitely grading him on a negative curve because I know something that happens later. But in this book, it's not bad, and I like that they're introducing this somewhat new character. I mean, we get a page of exposition that I guess she was in a Hulk issue or something like that. We get a couple pages of her origin. I think they could have scrunched that down to just a page, but otherwise, I'm kind of fine with this issue on those marks. And I want the thing to stick around. What about you?
Yeah. This issue too was growing on me. The tiger bits felt a little bit forced, but it also made sense with what Englehart's trying to portray in her character, so that's okay. Pandemonium, yes, I agree, is a weird villain, but I do like the odd creatures that are coming out of him. Right, they're almost Kirby-esque, maybe lacking the detail that Kirby would put in, but not the imagination. Right, not the weird imagination. So I'm digging it. I'm curious as to where it's going to go. All right, should we head on to the next issue?
You said we said weird. Let's get into it.
Let's get weird.
It's gonna
Okay.
get weirder.
West Coast Avengers number 5, ins and outs. Tigra's animal instincts are getting the better of her, and she wants to fix or cure her cat curse. Mockingbird then comes to the completely and totally rational conclusion that to find cat people, you should ask a werewolf. And so she figures out that Jack Russell, the werewolf by night, lives in Los Angeles because Spider-Woman once fought him. Okay. When calling upon Jack Russell's house, the biggest jump scare in the book occurs when Morbius, the living vampire, opens the door, except that he's not a vampire anymore for reasons. Well, Morbius seems to have Jack Russell locked up in a cage, as you do, but the full moon unleashes the beast, which breaks out of the cage, and apparently Russell's werewolf self has already met and fell in love with Tigra, which would have been nice for Tigra to have mentioned previously, but instead she gets kidnapped by the werewolf, which then causes a big fight throughout Los Angeles. In the end, Jack had seen the cat people, but remembers nothing of it, whereas it is revealed that Morbius had visited the cat people, and he does remember it, and so we seem to be embarking on another journey which will inevitably lead to Morbin time. I had to do it. I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of myself. Stojr.
What? I don't know why we went from reviewing the Morbius volume with those horrific cat people to following. Is this like where we have like character epics and we're just gonna follow the cat people throughout all of the books? Like,
This
I
is our
hope
curse.
no, because yeah, I like enough with the cat people. So, big question for you, and this might show my lack of reading comprehension, but like, I don't really understand what's going on with Tigra. Like, so she's making out with Simon on the beach, and then something happens, and she is upset that she attacked him, but then she makes out with Hank, and then Simon's absolutely fine walking around with a shit-eating grin on his face as he walks past the window. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know that it's ever. Am I missing something here? Like, what the hell's going on?
I think I before we got into this, I said I didn't know a whole lot about Tiger except that she was a hypersexualized Catwoman, and I think this is where that impression has come from. Is Englehart, I think, is just trying to set her up as this cat persona is taking over, and somehow that is being equated with hypersexuality. That Tiger's just horny for men all the time. And, her running around in a bikini probably doesn't help with that. but setting up that idea. But that's as far as I can tell is what's going on. Is just Tigra needs to. She's in heat.
But I guess like if he hurt Wonder Man, why isn't he hurt? Like she's like distressed that she attacked this guy, and the next time you see him, he's just like got the biggest smile on his face. He looks like Hercules.
What do you mean by hurt Simon? I'm not seeing where she hurt Simon.
She's on page 372. She runs up to Mockingbird, and she says, what's going, Mockingbird, all right, what's going on? Like we were on the beach, and then no, I attacked him. Suddenly I was all over him. I couldn't help myself. Maybe I'm reading too much in the attack. She's distressed that she was too sexual with him. Okay,
yeah, maybe that's all it is.
The part I kind of read that as like, because like he's not in the scene. Like I kind of read it as like
physically attacked,
the
like
cat persona took on and she started scratching him or bit him, whatever. But maybe that's just the part that I went back and missed. But anyway, all right. So
normally
she's just
that's poor writing is maybe what that is.
Yeah,
it's not clear to us.
And so I find that Hank and her stuff very interesting with that, because I know some of the future stuff where, spoilers, this part of the relationship, is something that happens again in the future during like the Secret Invasion era. So like this part sticks around or gets resurfaced at some point in time. And I won't fully spoil that. Whereas I don't know that her and Wonder Man, again, we have to read more West Coast Avengers. There might be more to that, or maybe that's a kind of one and done thing. But yeah, I mean, look, like Morbius just looks silly when he's like colored pink or whatever. Like when he's not a vampire. I don't know why he has to look exactly the same. It's just they just change the color palette or put him in a suit or something. But
he still has those teeth.
Yeah, like what is going on here?
Let me see if I can pull up this page I'm looking at.
That is the weirdest looking werewolf I've ever seen. And look, I am just going to complain and stall because I don't even want to talk about the cat people. Like I'm so tired of the cat people. But I know we're going to go full on cat people in the next issue. But yeah, this is weird. I also think that like this storyline with like her being hypersexualized is like, you wouldn't write this today. Like this is problematic. Like you could, like, I'm not trying to be like a white knight or look on things like, too much through like a modern sensibility here. Like I'm not trying to like get myself out there that much with this, but like even I'm like, wait a second, like could you get a woman to write this? Like this seems like a little weird. Like you could tell this is written by men. So I don't know. What did you think? I'm gonna stop talking there.
No, it's fine. Honestly, I am not sure what I'm reading anymore when I got to this issue. The cover was cool. I like that. I think the developments,
I like the cover.
Yeah, the developments with Tigra are interesting. I like that they're doing something with her, but yeah, it's the way it's happening is a little problematic. But otherwise, not much else. Stojr, I am going to give a no prize to this one, though.
All right.
All right. Let's close this down. So, the I have to blame someone, so it's going to be you prize, is awarded to our audience, actually. They voted on this volume. Now, Stojr, initially I was going to give this to you because I think you were the one who chose this volume to put on our voting poll, but then I realized you chose it before we read Morbius. So I suspect our audience, our voters, knew full well that we're going to get Morbius here, that we're going to get these weird cat people here. Why couldn't we just leave well enough alone? It's possible Stojr and I would have never gotten to this and would have never had to suffer through this, but I think our audience is doing something to us.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. And I did like the cover. And one last comment, like you said, like doing something with Tigra, but we just had a whole issue with Kraven that they did something with her character development.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're completely ignoring her.
True.
Like, You know, the one character that got the complete shaft in this volume is Rhodey because he disappeared without any like mention of him, and we never see him again.
Yeah. Come to think of it, they don't really do a whole lot with Mockingbird either. I mean, she's there, she has to be there, but because she's married to
Yeah, I
Hawkeye
mean,
now.
they just kind of have her, constantly kissing Hawkeye and like that, to remind everybody that they're newlyweds. She does the bartender thing in that one issue. She becomes a stronger character throughout the book, throughout the 100 issues that we'll read here. So I know, I guess I'm confident that they're going to do something with her character. But for now, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Not much so far.
All right. Gird your loins, Stozier. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. West Coast Avengers number 6, Quest for Cats. Al Milgram is still credited with layouts, with Kyle Baker taking over on art. All right, so Wonder Man gets a part in the new Archon movie, so Hawkeye convinces the Thing to fill in as they travel to Damon's mansion to hold a mystic ceremony to summon the cat people. God, we're back. Oh, we're back to Morbius again. Okay, so we're summoning the cat people to travel to the land within and see if the cat people can change Tigra back into being a human. We get a lore dump on the cat people and the revelation that Tigra is a mythical cat person warrior and that the cat person king wants Tigra to kill Master Pandemonium because the king finds him annoying. I can't. All right, Stozier, your thoughts.
I cannot stand the cat people. They like, not real life cat people. Like, I'm fine with cats. We have two of them here, but like the cat people that are in this book, I think the cover is awful. I get that they summon him throughout this thing, but the cover makes it seem like he's a cat genie about to come out and grant wishes. Um, I don't know when Mockingbird got a haircut.
Man,
She's got short hair in this issue. Yeah, she's got short hair from here on out, which is fine, but they don't mention it, and like they give you the impression that like this issue picks up almost immediately after the last one, because they're still with Morbius, but. So I mean, on the last page of 386, she's got long blonde hair. On this issue, you could make an argument that the art is so muddy that it's like up in a bun or something like that. But as you read through this, it's not. Her hair's short now, which is just weird. I mean, whatever. She's free to, as a fictional character, to cut her hair however she wants. But just odd. I think the art is overly muddy. Like, so I wish there was some distinction because like I was like, why is Conan in this? But it's not Conan. It's, they're on the set of a movie, but like, there's nothing to distinct, like to other than, the context of reading it. There's nothing visually that shows that like this is a movie set versus the cat people we just saw.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what you could argue that like, wait a second, like they spun the camera around from the cat people, and now you're looking at Simon fighting Conan in cat people world. But as long as you read the dialogue and the captions, you know that like they're on they transition to the movie set. But like because all the backgrounds are just kind of like one color, like there's no detail in the backgrounds in this until you get to almost like the last panel on the other page. I mean, I guess the first panel has the camera, but I don't know. It just, it looks weird. I do like the Ultron stuff in this. I do think that having an Ultron, whether it's one Ultron or many Ultrons, or, that is, like trying to be good Ultron or whatever its motivations are here. I think that's interesting. I think when you have a robot that is broke and doing different things, I think that the current day West Coast Avengers series plays with this a bit, where Ultron is an Avenger in that series. That's not really a spoiler because it's like on the cover of the series that's out right now. It plays with this concept. I think that even if you look at, which is probably um, after this, but not far after this. But like the Inferno crossover, where all is it Inferno or it's either Inferno or it's the Acts of Vengeance. It might be Acts of Vengeance that I'm thinking of, but it's somewhere in this time period, but sometime after this, where Daredevil actually fights a version of Ultron. Is the issues that I'm thinking of. It's
Probably
got
X-Men.
JRJRR and things like that, but it's got an Ultron that's not thinking properly. So like I like the idea that there's broken or differently programmed Ultrons that pop up from time to time, and it's not just the same thing. So I like that in this story, but that's about 2 pages out of this book. The rest of the book can burn in hell.
Tell me how you really feel. Um, gosh, Englehart just does not want to give up on this idea that he had 5 years ago. And it seems to be twisting its way through the various books that he writes, right? And maybe this is where my annoyance lies. If he had his own book and he could establish his own lore in one place instead of it going through multiple different titles, maybe this would be more coherent, right? In a way, I'm glad we read that Morbius volume before this one because I would have no clue what was happening had it not been for that. As it is, my only thought is kind of what I've already expressed. Interesting ideas, poor execution. Although I do find it hilarious that they have Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Archon, right? Marvel's own Conan ripoff, Schwarzenegger having made it big as Conan in films. That was a fun little touch. I'm not sure how I feel about Kyle Baker's style just yet. It seems a little grittier, which is not really the tone of this book, given all the cat people in it. But yeah, still, as you say, the backgrounds are still awfully blank, which doesn't really help.
Yeah, I think if he had spent more time in the backgrounds, I would appreciate his art for what it is. I agree that it doesn't fit with the story or maybe even fit with the Avengers overall. But but I don't dislike the grittiness of his art if it was fully fleshed out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I was the editor or whoever gives feedback on to an artist at the Marvel Comics, and I kick this back to him and I go, "This looks good. Go work on the backgrounds." This is your phase one. Now go draw the backgrounds in. It'd be good, but yeah, I don't think it necessarily fits here with what the story we're telling or how it's set up. And also they just really needed to see those cats in the cave do it. Like just like you feel like maybe he spent his time drawing some other issues that went straight to Steve Englehart and never got distributed or something like that. I don't know. This is so
Well,
weird.
you may or may not like this, but I've got another no prize. Now, to my defense, this is a no prize I've been thinking out through much of this volume, but I thought it was just best to give it here, given the context here. This is going to be best personification. I'm giving this to Tigra because she really, aside from the extreme horniness, she really does act like a cat. Early on, we get her climbing up trees on page 81. She's sitting on the counter on page 91. She's sitting on the roof on page 92. She's afraid of water on page 194. Of course, her distrust of outsiders and even purring during Englehart's run. I thought that worked. I think the only thing we're missing here is she's not sitting in a cardboard box, right? If only we had that, then she'd really be cat-like. It seems to me that Roger Stern, or maybe his artist, did more to emulate the physicality of her being a cat, whereas Englehart seems to be trying to do more to replicate the personality of a cat. At least that's the impression I've been getting.
Okay.
So, anyway, aside from the extreme horniness, I was kind of impressed with how cat-like they've made Tigra. All right.
All future epic volumes will be pre-screened to make sure that there's no cat people world visit. Tiger can stay, but we're not going back to the cat universe on these epic review shows. They will be vetoed.
We'll just put if it does happen unwittingly, we'll just put a black screen up with some static noise until to fill in that part, right? All right, let's get past the
There you
cat
go.
people. West Coast Avengers #7. You robot. Joe Sinnott returns for art duties. The journey to the place within is put on pause, thank God, as the story focuses on Hank Pym, who has been receiving calls from Ultron Mark 12, claiming that he's had a change of heart and wants to reconnect with his dad. Hank takes a leap of faith, and Ultron seems sincere, but when Hank enters Ultron's lab, he's attacked by Ultron Mark 11, which had survived the Secret Wars. Ultron 12 was damaged, defeating Pym, but finds Wonder Man in Hollywood, who comes to save the day. In the end, the two Avengers witness the death of both Ultrons. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
I really like this issue. I think this is more what the Avengers West Coast should be. I like the drama with Ultron. I like keeping him over here as a villain because you got Hank over here. I think there's been a lot of interesting stories with that. I know that you have some comments here in the show notes about like the art, so I'll let you kind of take on some of that. We do get a couple panels of the cat world, but we quickly move away from that. So I'll give it a little knock for that. A little Easter egg on page 417, where the Live Aid button and Feed the World T-shirt is being worn by the individual touching the Ultron head. Easter egg for this time of year, right? You get
Mm-hmm.
there's a very famous Christmas song that came out of Live Aid from that time period that is still played today, right? Let them know it's Christmas time or whatever the title of it is. But
Mm-hmm. Was
the
that Live Aid?
but yeah, yeah,
I did not know that
that
was
where
Live
they all
Aid.
got in the room. That's why you have like Bono and all of
Mm-hmm.
the different singers singing that song. That was for Live Aid, and the song is "Feed the World." Let them know that it's Christmas time. So
I just listened to a BBC History Extra podcast that was all about Live Aid. It was quite interesting. A guy who was there at the time and had helped organize it and so forth was talking about his memories and the effect that it had. And it's something I hadn't really thought about. That he was saying something to the effect that the way, shoot, what was it? Oh man, I'm not going to remember it now. It was something about the way live charities operate changed with Live Aid. Like it was a little more downplayed before, but this time it was wide out in the open. Send in your checks, help fund, and so forth. I'd have to go back and
mm,
re-listen to it, but it was like it put it as an actual historical pivotal moment, not just in music, but in philanthropy in general, which I thought that was an interesting take.
yeah, and this was, and I don't mean to indicate that the Christmas song was live, like
Right?
that
Yeah, yeah.
happened at the concerts, but this was all in studio, and you get the music video of them in the studio, and the great Saturday Night Live parodies of it that happened back then. But yeah, I mean, this was all tied into all of that stuff of helping to feed starving people in Africa. And as an aside, as much as I would have donated or encouraged all of this back then, I think that Live Aid concert is amazing in London and Philadelphia and things like that. This Sam Kinison rant on feeding starving people in Africa is great too. If you've ever, I don't know if you're a Sam Kinison fan, but
No, don't know. I'm
his
not a.
the core of the joke is basically like we're gonna make one trip, we're gonna pick you up, and we're gonna take you to where the food is. So, see this? This is sand. Nothing grows here. We're gonna take you to where the food is. So, and he obviously does it a lot better than anything I said there. So, yeah. So I enjoy this issue. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
overall?
I really enjoyed this one too. No more cat people, so that's good. It's still a little ham-fisted, but having the reconciliation between Ultron 12 and Pym, which leads to Ultron's sacrifice, I thought was great. I just wish the growing relationship between Pym and Ultron had been built out over several issues, which would have given this more meaning. Right? Yes, we've got the creepy stalker calls that Ultron's been doing for several issues, but they don't actually talk until two or three issues previously. But if that had been drawn out more, that might have made this better. I did find some of the perspective shots interesting. Like when we're looking through Ultron's eyes, which we had in the splash page. You kind of see that on this page I've got on the comic viewer right now, looking up at the person who's opening the box. Let's see. Ultron 11's recovery was kind of creepy, but Ultron 12 summoning his body, that perspective shot, that I thought was really neat. Let's see if I can find that on the comic viewer real quick. Yeah, here we go. I'm not sure what page that is, but here. Page 424. I've got that up on the right hand screen there. So anyway, I thought that was just really neat, something kind of unique that we don't really see all that often in these comics. So just well done on that. This probably the most solid issue of the Englehart run, I think, so far anyway. Stojr, yeah. Okay, shall we head on to Wonder Man #1 and then wrap this up?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Wonder Man #1. No title on this. It's just called Wonder Man. I like that cover there. All right, written by David Michelinie, pencils by Kerry Gamil, inks by Vince Colletta. Simon Williams flubs an audition and decides to crash at the Avengers Mansion since he's low on funds. While there, Scott Lang, aka the new Ant-Man, gets in touch with an independent subsidiary of Stark Industries, which are looking for a superpowered bodyguard. Simon takes the job, succeeds in his first crisis, but the second crisis to hit the company, he has to actually leave for an Avengers priority mission. Well, Wonder Man ends up saving Manhattan from becoming a nuclear wasteland due to the actions of the Sandman, so he does well as a hero, but he loses his job. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
I also like the cover. I think this issue's fine. It's a little long. Like, maybe it's just because I'm not that interested in Wonder Man. I don't find him that compelling a character overall. So, normally I wouldn't complain about a big issue. I think it's like 30 or 40 pages. But for me, like, I don't know. It kind of just drug on for me just because it wasn't my cup of tea from a character perspective. I think it's funny that his jacket gets all ripped up on page 456, and then while they drop a note that he bought clothes on 457, he buys the exact same red jacket that just happens to have W's on the pockets. Which is interesting, like where he's finding this exact jacket on here. So yeah, I think the art is fine. Like, it's not my favorite, but I wouldn't necessarily critique much of it. I think the belt jetpacks are a little corny. Like, I think spoilers later on in Simon's career, when he's able to sort of change into more of an ionized person, he has the ability to fly, so we don't have the jetpacks later. I like the fact that Sandman's in here, but I can't remember. Is this a flashback or is this
This
because like Sandman's good at some point? So
yeah, it said at the beginning, I think, this takes place, here we go. The story takes place before Marvel 2-in-1 number 86 and West Coast Avengers Volume 1 number 1. So this is even before the mini-series. So it was released later, but the story is supposed to take place before West Coast Avengers.
yeah, and I don't remember exactly when Sandman became a good guy.
Yeah.
So because he was like on Silver Sable's Wild Pack in the 90s. Yeah, so that was the only other thing. It's like for me, like I thought that like he was like reforming during this time, and the fact that he was like a villain, but this could have been earlier than what I'm thinking of. So no, not a big deal. But we get two Spider-Man villains in this whole overall volume, which is interesting. By the way, they had all of this long-term character development for Sandman to have him be, an anti-hero, a good guy, and then John Byrne deletes all that, or at least I think it was John Byrne. Might have been Howard Mackey in the around the year 2000, which just frustrated the hell out of me. So
I was
they
wondering.
basically delete the good parts of his brain. to make him a villain again.
Yeah, I was wondering how Sandman became a villain again because I remember that he was with the Wild Pack as you said, and then I
I mean, quick spoiler because it's like 2 pages. He basically gets captured by the Mad Thinker, and the Mad Thinker just like deletes the part of his brain that thinks he's good and turns him into a villain again. It's literally like that corny.
oh
So there's they just flush all that character development instead of you know I think they like during excuse me during uh the gauntlet storylines of Spider-Man, like they have some really compelling motivations for like why
mhm,
the Rhino might be trying to be good or bad, or and without spoiling it, different things happening in time. That's very well written.
yep.
But we're going a good 10, 15 years before that with just Howard and or John Byrne just kind of deleting what they didn't like. So anyway, what are your thoughts?
Um, I thought this was a fun issue. We get a little more personal time with Wonder Man to see how he thinks and how it fits into the timeline of this volume well. So we kind of talked about the chronology already, so I kind of would have liked if it were earlier in the volume to fit chronologically, but I understand it was printed later, so it's fine. So I thought it was just fun. Come to think of it, that cover there, I just looked at it again, and having if you don't know the contents of the story, it looks like he's fighting a bunch of toddlers. Which he doesn't in the story. He's fighting aliens, but you just look at that. That looks like a bunch of toddlers in armor, so that's kind of problematic, actually. But still, fun story. I like that in the very beginning of the story, Wonder Man is trying out for Secret Hospital, and that's the show that Mary Jane was in, right? In Spider-Man, maybe that's just Michelinie's thing because I think Michelinie was writing that part when Mary Jane was doing the soap opera gig. But still, that's a fun, neat little callback, which actually was in the Marvel Cosmic Invasion video game too. In one of the levels, there's a billboard of watch Secret Hospital. It's like, oh, okay, here we go. It just came back around again.
Mhm.
All right, that's about all I have for that issue. Stojr, any other final thoughts, or should we get into bonus material and wrap this whole thing up?
Yeah, well, just a quick comment on I guess Michelinie did start Spider-Man right around this time. So because Craven's Last Hunt is 86, and I think that's when he started his run on Spider-Man. So he might have the Mary Jane stuff might be after this is my point. But
Right.
then again, depending on when the Wonder Man issue was printed, because I remember you said that it was printed after some of the stuff. So the only other comment would be like with the I did not notice the babies or the children on the cover. It does remind me, and you should Google this afterwards. There's an Absolute Batman panel. The Absolute Batman's a very hot book right now.
Hmm.
I'm not collecting it. I'll get it in trade when it comes out. But there's a story where he's fighting some villains on a boat, and there's some like it looks almost exactly like this, some like baby villain type thing, and he just punts it into the ocean. Like he like literally just like kicks it like a football, and then the one of the friend villain goes and saves it or jumps in after it or something like that. But it looks a lot like this, so it reminds me of that. So yeah, bonus material.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm gonna switch my camera back so I will no longer have Hercules as my co-pilot. Um, let's quickly talk about bonus material. Let's see if I can get the comic viewer to go up there. Here we go. All right, nothing too earth shattering in the bonus material. There's an interview with Steve Englehart from Marvel Age about his start on the Avengers West Coast run. But having just read his run, there wasn't anything too earth shattering in this. I mean, if it was a preview at the time, it probably would have been very exciting. Although I admit that finding out that he writes whatever comes to him each month instead of having kind of a plan set in advance might explain some of the complaints about the books of his that I have read. Now, the good writers do say that the characters kind of take on a life of their own, and so therefore you can have plans, but those plans you should be open to changing depending on where the characters end up taking you. But to do everything on the fly, which is what the impression I got there, that seems a little weird. We do get the entries for Hawkeye and Mockingbird from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. We get a poster, alternate cover art, and then the volume wraps up with an afterword by former editor Ralph Macchio, which we don't have a whole lot of those, but that was interesting. So nothing too earth-shattering for the extras. I say the Ralph Macchio's afterword is interesting. It's really just kind of it's kind of the Stan talk, right? He's saying everything is incredible and awesome and so forth. There's not really a whole lot of meat to it, but it's fine.
Stojr, yeah, I like the official handbook stuff in here. I kind of wish we would get more of that. You see things like this in annuals a lot of the time, where I remember a lot of like or anniversary issues too, of like we're going to draw Peter and Mary Jane's apartment and show you the layout of that, or show you Freedom's Plaza or the Baxter Building or wherever the Fantastic Four are living at a particular point in time. So I always think that stuff's interesting, and where they try and do it. I wonder though if they sort of like got tired of everybody nitpicking things, like, oh, that wouldn't really work that way, or that now you've created a continuity error, and they've sort of steered away from that. But otherwise, I wish they would do some of this stuff more.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I do kind of want to get the handbook, official handbook omnibuses. I wouldn't read them cover to cover, though. It'd be more like a reference volume to just kind of check in every now and then. But I would rather it be in epic format. But, well,
yeah,
who knows? All right, let's wrap this up. This volume, I think, is a little hit or miss. I find myself viewing it in a similar vein to Morbius 1, Volume 1, and I'm sure the presence of Englehart as the writer in at least the back half is not helping with that. But what I mean is that there's some great ideas here, but they're not always presented well. But there are some really good issues. West Coast Avengers number 7. I did actually like Wonder Man number 1, that too. Perhaps it's the smaller character moments that work best, and that's hard to accomplish in a team book. It can be done, and we occasionally get something interesting interactions between the teammates here. I mean, I personally love the Hawkeye Thing dynamic that's happening, but that, again, might just be because I like the Thing. So, for my rating for this volume, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Call it average or just slightly above average. I'm glad it's here. I'm interested enough to see where it goes. I'm not sure I'm ever going to read this again. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
So I feel like this is kind of more of like a historical reading for me. Like if I want to read, like if I want to be able to appreciate the later volumes of West Coast Avengers, I kind of need to see where it starts out from. I also enjoy the Ultron stuff. I don't feel like this was hard to get through like the Morbius volume was, but I don't know that I'm going to go back and like reread this ever again. It doesn't interest me that much. I'm gonna give this a 6. And I don't remember what I gave Morbius. I think I'm trying to. I'm not gonna paint myself into a corner where I try and compare them. Maybe like later on, I'll readjust my rankings based off of like their. I'll give it a bell curve, right? I'll readjust my rankings based off of how the rest of the class did. But for now, I'm just gonna give this a 6. It's a little bit above average. There's nothing terrible in here beyond the cat people issue, but there's also not a lot of like huge stuff in here other than it's the beginning of these characters of this type of book and these things. I mean, I guess you can argue like Defenders was a little bit like the sort of the champions book where it's it's not your big ticket people, and this is filling the gap of that point in time, but. You have things like, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, like Thunderbolts carrying the torch on for this, or Avengers: The Initiative, or Avengers. West Coast continues in other volumes, but Mighty Avengers, things like that, where you're the secondary Avengers team and you're able to operate differently. I mean, even new Avengers, not so much in the what we have released right now in Epic Collections because they are the primary Avengers team, but eventually there'll be an Avengers team and a new Avengers separate from that. I don't know that they necessarily have the same feel as this book. Like I feel like there's a connective tissue with Thunderbolts, but from just a vibe perspective. But I do feel like there's a lot to be said here that people should see this from the historical context, but don't expect a ton out of it. Just appreciate it for what it is and move on.
Yep. All right. Well, that means our combined rating for this one is a 6.75. We really need to have like a website or something where we can record all these and have them in one place. But for right now, it just lives in our videos. Okay. Where we're going from here. Oh, I got an extra slide there. We don't really need that. We're going to keep up with the X-Men daily readings and reviews. We're going to be starting Volume 8, I, Magneto, next week. Stojr, we're a little behind on our videos. We got to get a couple recorded and posted. Granted, with the holidays coming up, I'm going to be traveling again. We might need to sit down and figure out a solution. Maybe do some individual episodes or whatever. We can talk about that after the stream. But anyway, those videos are going to drop at 3 p.m. every day. Next month, second Sunday of January, we are going to read Daredevil Volume 5. Where is it? To Dare the Devil. So that's going to be at 8 a.m. January 11th.
Right? It's volume 8, by the way, not 5. But yeah.
Son of a biscuit. Same problem with the last one. I just copied the slide from the last one, and I forgot to change the number. But yes, you're right. Volume 8, To Dare the Devil. Now, the voting poll for what we're going to read after that, the result is Incredible Hulk Volume 8, The Curing of Dr. Banner. The goal is to read that the second Sunday of February, so that will be February 8th, 8 a.m. Eastern. Stojr and everyone else, I've got to be honest with this one. I may not physically be able to get my copy of this. Again, I've got a fractured fibula, I'm in a boot, I'm on crutches, and I don't have beautiful shelves like Stojr does. I've got all my epics in short comic boxes, which are upstairs from where I am. And the combination of getting up the stairs and lifting those heavy boxes to find this volume, I don't know if I'll be able to do. But we've got 2 months before we have to worry about that. Who knows? I might be healed. I might be okay by then. So we're going to put it on the schedule for now. But we might have to pivot when the time comes, just to see if I'm physically capable of getting this volume out. But in a similar vein, it's not up yet, but we'll have a voter poll for what we'll read after The Incredible Hulk. Stojr and I still need to figure out what we're going to replace this volume with in that poll. Maybe we also need to talk about having a mercy rule, because we've got a couple volumes on there that have been on there since we've started this thing. I'm thinking Black Widow Modern 1 and Dark Avengers Modern 1. They've both been on there for the whole time. So we'll talk about that later. All right. I think that is it. Stojr, any other final thoughts?
Excited about the Hulk one. Also excited about the Frank Miller introduction here. I was flipping through the Daredevil book to make sure there's no cat people in it. Although there is an issue, I think it's drawn by what's his name? Who drew Spider-Man originally? I'm blanking.
Ditko?
Yeah, I think it's a Ditko issue in here that has a guy that has a cat, like a panther or something like that, that is attacking them. But it did not look like. Yep, art by Steve Ditko, issue 162.
Oh.
Anyway. So, but that is not a human cat. It's not a cat person. It's just a cat. So we're okay. So yeah, looking forward to that. To the Daredevil. With the Hulk, I did just get the To Hunt the Hulk. So so starting off that run of Volume 8, and if you have to pivot, that's fine. Or if we do, if those issues might all be up on Marvel Unlimited too. You can always not read the physical copy and fake it. Although you may not want to do that because you own the physical copy, and that's why you own it.
Yep.
So we'll figure that out. But we got plenty of time. So looking forward to all that, and no issue with the solo episodes for the X-Men stuff. I think we're only behind by yesterday, right? Like we.
Yes, we haven't. We have not recorded yesterday's issue episode. We haven't done today's, and then of course, well, we can talk off screen about what to do there.
Yep.
All right.
So we're a day behind, and we don't have anything in the queue yet for it.
Yeah.
So.
Come to think of it, I haven't put our link tree in our in the description yet either. So I'm gonna have a couple things I'm gonna have to change afterwards in the description of this video. So we'll have our link tree if you want to follow us on any of our socials, and then also a link to that poll. But you can also find that. Well, the poll's not up yet, so we'll get all that posted. I'll get an updated episode guide for what's coming up in the future. But I think that's it. Thank you all for watching. Happy reading. Again, we'll be back in another month, plus our one-shots. We'll do another episode, and I'll say it. It's going to be epic. All right. See ya.
Later.